All right, all right. Okay, welcome to the Deadman Horror Show. I'm your host, Mr. Deadman. And with us tonight is our lovely guest here, Robert Benaquista. Robert
How's
Benaquista.
it going?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. It's going well. It's going well over here. Um, Bene,
Excellent.
Benaquista. That's Spanish for a whale's vagina. Is that right? Is that what that is?
Very close. It's actually Italian and it means
Oh,
well gains, but close
oh,
enough though.
that would be a well gain for sure. I need to brush up on my
Aha,
Spanish.
touche.
3 years of Spanish was not helping me at all. Oh,
It's all Latin, all under the same umbrella, like Italian, Portuguese, Latin. It's all under the same Latin umbrella, so it's all the same.
all right. Well, we got a sponsor here tonight. We gotta be serious for this, okay? Um,
Okay.
last week we had a sponsor about a lawyer service, which could actually help you if you just so happen if your knife just so happen to find its way into a babysitter or something. Um, I don't know if people really took up on that offer, but that was 10% discount from an attorney. You got to take advantage of that. You never know when you're going to need that. Tonight's sponsor is Midnight Gravediggers. Let me read this copy. Hey, do you happen to have something in your trunk that needs to be buried? Do you have something in a large bag that is going to smell if not disposed of properly? Do you happen to find yourself in a situation where you might have hit something while driving, and of course no one else has watched or knows about it? Then you need you need the service of Midnight Gravediggers. Go to mgd.com, use promo code DHS2022 to get 10% off. That's Midnight Gravediggers. We can dig it. All right. All right. Now let's
Nice.
be serious here. I mean, we're serious all the time here.
Nice.
All right. Robert Benaquista. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, I'm a musician. I'm in from New Jersey, not too far from New York City. I'm in that area. I studied music since I was 5 years old. I'm self-taught on four different instruments. I eventually went to college and studied music, and eventually got a bachelor's degree in music with a concentration in music management. I've since interned at Electronica record label, and I've taught music lessons for many different schools over the years, and I've since gone on to be a private instructor, and I've composed music under Cucurbitophobia since 2018. I've also allowed several of my music to be licensed in several avenues, such as corporations and on European agencies, and a few different areas where I've done work for several documentaries. For example, I have a friend who does amusement park roller coaster documentaries and does a podcast called NJ Movie Freak, who I've
Oh,
done
cool.
music for him as well. And we're like very close friends. And it's mostly non-horror related, but we sometimes overlap, and we're actually doing a segment coming up pretty soon on Hellraiser, strictly devoted to Hellraiser. So that's going to be pretty cool too.
Oh, that's
But
pretty neat.
yes, I am a musician, and I pretty much live, eat, sleep, and drink music. I have a condition called synesthesia where I can see sounds and hear colors, and I have absolute pitch. So if someone were to say something or play a note, I know exactly what it is with my eyes closed without a point of reference. And I've used that talent to, help myself get more work, build more opportunities, and allow myself to teach students on various levels on various instruments. So it's allowed me to, thrive over the years.
That's pretty cool. That's really amazing. First off, you got a music degree and you actually are using it.
Oh yes, I mean I hustle a lot. I teach at several different music agencies as an independent contractor. Like I said, I teach guitar, drums, piano, bass guitar. I also teach voice, in different levels, and I, have students from teenagers to adults to elderly folks as well. So it's a, very wide palette of music. I teach everything from blues to country to rock to electronic to, you know, light jazz, light classical,
Hmm.
all over the spectrum.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, some people get like a degree in that and they just sit around do nothing. And then there's other people that are like in music, like in bands or whatever, make really good names for themselves and don't even have a degree in it, but you
Yeah,
actually made it work for you.
It's an interesting thing, and it's I've definitely made it work for me more since the pandemic too. I was able to
Mm,
work around the pandemic when they had the giant lockdown, and I was able to make the transition to a lot of virtual and remote lessons with a lot of my
mm,
students, and was able to find some other side hustles with some online odd jobs as well. So it's worked in my favor. I mean, I can't say the same for other people, but I've allowed myself to still use my opportunist sense to find other opportunities instead of just
yeah,
sitting back and waiting for nothing.
that's good. Yeah, you have to seize the opportunity. You can't just sit around and do nothing there. Time is money, after all.
Absolutely.
And synesthesia,
Definitely.
being able to see colors, what's that like? I mean, a lot of people have to take shrooms or acid to get that sort of thing.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, I don't use drugs. I very seldom drink alcohol, but I don't use hard drugs, and I very have rarely dabbled in marijuana. But I'm not into drugs, and I don't use psychedelics. But interesting enough, when I hear a note, I just think of a color. Like if I hear the notes, like a C, for example, on a piano, I think of the color red. If I play a certain chord in a certain key, it has a different shade of that color. It's
Hmm.
pretty bizarre. But when I hear like horror movies, like atonal stuff, I hear like think of shades of gray or dark green or like
Ooh,
very like like cryptic colors that like have like a certain like eerie or peculiar quality to it that isn't pretty to the naked eye.
that is pretty cool, man. That's really nifty. Being in music and not doing drugs, that's a whole other podcast. We
Yeah.
can get into that. But no, so how did it start with your? I mean, why horror? Like, what was your fascination with horror?
Well, it's very interesting and a very long story. Since I was a young child, I had severe night terrors and nightmares and sleep paralysis, and I was scared of my own shadow, like, and I had severe anxiety, like, for like forever. Never was like treated with drugs or anything, but I just dealt with sleep paralysis. I've dealt with dreams within dreams, hypnagogia, all these different things that science attributes to having social anxiety or deep like just like not deep disorders, but things that allow you to have turbulence in the middle of the night. I attributed it to some things that like might have dealt with unresolved conflicts that have just built up. Seeing imagery that might have disturbed me as a young child, such as seeing clowns or seeing visuals of ghosts or visuals of macabre art
Yeah,
and various mediums, and a lot of that just built up. And I found myself when I hit my teens that I should probably use this as a cathartic way to, express that fear and to purge that fear. And that's why I started to, really dive deep into horror movies. And I used to write fake horror stories, that I wrote in high school and college that never went anywhere, but I just decided to use that. It never really occurred to me, though, that I'd be composing horror music because for a while I was a strict metalhead. From age 12 to 19, I was a strict metalhead. Like I wouldn't listen to anything but metal for a while. Like
you
it was
don't say. I
Slayer,
mean, I see the
Overkill.
look. I see. I'll be
Yeah,
like, this dude probably. You probably know typo negative. You know typo negative, like
I was a huge Type O Negative fan. I'm
yeah.
still a huge Type O Negative fan. I saw them on the last tour on the Dead Again tour,
Oh
and that's
man,
when they just killed it. They crushed it live.
man,
They were
that is a
fantastic. When
that is a good band. That is a good band.
I I had October Rust and Bloody Kisses when I was 13, and I
Oh,
just
that's
those
nice.
albums were definitely life changing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
blood.
Peter Steele he was a prodigy.
I had bloody kisses. That's the only one I had, but I like them all. I mean, I stream them all the time. They're usually one of the bands I listen to while I'm writing on the Harley and stuff. But yeah, man, that's really cool. So it was through anxiety and fear that kind of got you into horror. That's kind of interesting. That horror kind of gave you a comfort, really.
Oh yes, it did. It kind of like it made me, feel that way too because I wasn't very when I grew up, I wasn't a very popular kid. I wasn't like severely bullied or anything like that to that extent, but I wasn't like accepted as part of the in crowd. I wasn't like one of the cool kids, and I used to think of crazy ideas and interesting things in my imagination that I thought were normal, but people would just like say, "Oh, he's weird. Let's stay away from him." It was one of those, and it sort of manifested into sort of just naturally being who I am, and gravitating towards the art and the music that shaped my tastes over the years.
That's really interesting. It seems to be a pattern there where it's like people that are really into horror, it just so happens to be that they may have their own like anxiety and fears, and they might be that weird guy or that weird kid in high school, um, it's like cliche, but it seems to be a thing there.
Absolutely, definitely.
Now
And
this.
fear,
Oh, go ahead.
it's cool. Oh no, I said fear hits different people on different levels too.
Oh, you're right about that. 100%. Now you have this project. Is it a band? Is it a project? Kirk. I'm going to mispronounce it here. Cucurbitophobia. Did I say it right?
You got it. No, spot on.
Okay.
No, it's all me. It's a one man project. I started it in 2018. I mean, I've developed it over the years. Like it's been like a work in progress for like probably 7 to 8 years of just slowly but surely accumulating and developing scary, dark music. I mean, I flirted with industrial type music that never really went anywhere. I flirted with like that drum and bass gent sound of metal that didn't really work. So then around 2018, I just decided to just like narrow the scope and just make it strictly horror and make it strictly themed around horror. So I put together a collection of my best music, and I released my first album, Tapestries of Terror, which I used as like a launch pad. I went to a few horror conventions, and I went to, like, for example, the Chiller Theater Expo and the NJ Horror Con, and I would set up a table as a vendor, and I would sell these CDs, and I would be selling them to people, complete strangers, just playing the music over my speakers, and I'd sell about a dozen or so copies the first year, and the second year I'd sell more copies, and then it was a way to just get myself out there in the beginning stages.
That's pretty cool. I mean, okay, I only listened to one song so far. It was, I think, just on the landing page. It was the Cloak of Twilight. And for those listening, those who catch us later on, I highly recommend it because, like, that song there, and not to brown nose or anything like that, it was fascinating right from the beginning. Like, you really captured that horror sound. Let me see if I could really describe this in a way that really sells it. I love the way how it created this atmosphere of like claustrophobia. Like it felt like the sounds, all the voices in it were very organic, natural. Not that a drum beat's not natural, like hitting the drum or anything, but it's like instead of a bass drum, it was a heartbeat, like very intense pounding.
That's what I was trying to explore. You're hitting the more visceral feeling, something that hits all of your senses as you hear it. As if the drum sound I was going for was to be akin to a tree crashing onto a house, or to a large rock hitting the window and shattering the glass. Something that of that nature that is sudden, and it just hits you and just catches your attention and keeps your attention for the remainder.
Yeah, I mean, you did that right. I mean, even when the snare comes in, it's like something breaking. Like you said, glass there. To me, it sounded like like a twig or a branch or something. Like violence. Like the song had, I don't know, man. Maybe I felt dread listening to it. I was like, this would be great for a horror movie. This would be great for any sort of like creepypasta reading or anything like that. I mean, if you want suspense, you have it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what I was trying to evoke, and every time I get into that zone while I'm writing or producing the beat or the underscore of it before I go into the other nuances of it, I try to visualize what I can portray. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but most of the time when it works, I just use my instincts to further the rest of the piece before it becomes a full master work.
And so, how did the name come about? Cucurbitophobia. That's not something that they had that name come about. And are you afraid of pumpkins? Are you really afraid of pumpkins there?
No, I'm not afraid of pumpkins. I just wanted to use something that is distinctly of the Samhain, Halloween visuals and aesthetic. And I just thought that, since pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns are commonly used throughout Halloween, I figured, let's think about the fear of pumpkin. And I knew that the name was really long and very hard to pronounce, but at the same time, I thought it was unique to try something that would be hard to pronounce, because it it sort of weeds out those who might be like casually curious, and it might, pull in those more who might be more loyal and dedicated fans that really appreciate
Gotcha.
the art that I put into it.
Gotcha. I see that. Look at that. You're filtering out those that just be like passerbys. Look at that. Look at that. Okay.
Oh yes, I mean I've kind of come to the conclusion that people are either going to really enjoy what I do or really dismiss it. There's really no in between. It's more like I either really like this or oh, this sucks. But I'd rather have that, that honesty of someone who doesn't like it, because then okay, go on to something else. But those who have bought my work and those who have listened to it, have kept coming back for my future releases, and who have, bought my work and have supported it and have helped spread the word, which I, really appreciate over the years.
And it has definitely worked. I mean, your music has been used in things.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with the Midwest Horror Network. They're based in Chicago. I actually met them through the New Jersey Horror Con. I met Brandon, Zach, and Mark, and a few of the other guys that have worked together. And they've recently produced a YouTube video for A Stroll Through the Woods, which I scored for them, and it's gotten a lot of attention. And it's built up to over probably close to 2,000 views, and it's gotten a lot of likes, and it's helped me gain more exposure in that realm.
Hey, that's nice. That's nice. I'm sure. Maybe some other offers too, like maybe like a video game or creepypasta sort of game. One of those things. Has your work been featured in any of those?
Not yet. I mean, I've been, talking to several people, trying to, circulate the music and shop around. I'm working with a PR agent right now who, his name, he works for, it's called Mooncoil Media. He's, done work with Christian Death and some other, notable acts, and he's helped me further my music with some really awesome PR campaigns and some press releases, and I've also worked with Brutal Resonance out in Sweden, and they've been really helpful in featuring my music and helping myself circulate to other potential fans in that area as well.
That's nice. That's nice. So, how do you feel that your music probably induces nightmares? Is that what you're going for?
Yes, either to induce nightmares or to induce dread, or to perhaps allow people to purge that sort of emotion.
Yeah.
Listen to it to let it out of their system, so they can use it as a form of, like, a loose form of therapy in a way, to if they're fearing something, just indulge and revel in that fear, and then once it's done, just completely decompress, like it's over, and then you can go about the rest of your day or the rest of your night and enjoy yourself, or feel relaxed, or think about some of the things that might make you laugh, or be happy, or be joyful, or be excited.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. That's cool, and that's how it should be. And going from that, another whole genre, horror, that needs sound and music to create, atmosphere, to sell nightmares, to make people fear. Right, it is so important how sound design overall for horror movies, like would you say that it's like essential?
Absolutely, it's essential. I mean, and it's almost mandatory that every great horror film has a sound, or a library of sounds, and a collection of scores that are interweaved within one another, to allow the timing of the specific scares to properly allow the individual watching to feel it, whether it's a quick jump scare, or whether it's a build up scene that really builds up with dread and gradual suspense, that a gradual crescendo that leads to a sudden, like, shock to the system. I mean, that's wonderful. One great example that comes to mind is the hospital scene in The Exorcist 3,
Yeah.
where the nurse is walking right out. It's very quiet for that several minute build up, and then all of a sudden, boom, the man with the shears comes out, and it's like, and
Yeah,
when I first saw that, I jumped out of my seat. And very few scenes have made me do that in recent times. When I saw that, I was literally like, whoa.
Man, that is a really good example. That is a really good example there of really good sound design in a horror film. Another one that comes to mind is the movie Alien. When
yes,
man, I'm thinking one particular scene where the guys there, you hear the chains kind of like rattling. You hear like the drips from the water.
It's very subtle.
Yeah, everything else is quiet. There's no other sounds other than just what would be needed to build the atmosphere, to convince those that are watching the movie that they're not just watching a movie, like the character is actually there in that setting, in that environment. That's so important. Like, I don't think, like, if you were to take any sort of iconic horror movie, any sort of intense horror scene, and you swap out the sounds, it totally changes everything. Like,
absolutely.
Like, imagine if
that's
like,
one of my biggest. Yeah.
I was gonna say
that's one of my biggest. That's one of my biggest feelings about it. That's, you hit it right on the head.
100%, man. Like, imagine if a xenomorph, when he comes down, instead of like, you know, that intense sound that he makes, imagine if it was like a laugh track or like some stupid like sound. You know, it doesn't, like a chipmunk. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. You know,
it would be comedy at that point. It would be like dark comedy or like spoof at that point. It would like would be akin to watching a Mel Brooks movie at that point.
Right,
you know,
right.
It would just like.
It's so.
Conversely, though, on the other hand, if you watch like Rob Zombie's The Devil's Rejects, however, he uses a lot of the classic rock, like Lynyrd Skynyrd at the end, of the final scene, and uses some of the other material that's not maybe as scary in certain scenes to, you know, create that feeling of like, it's like that ironic feeling of fear and dread, but also like a mockery of the person that's getting killed on the scene.
That's interesting. Yeah, you're right about that. It kind of creates this, in a way, it kind of makes it more familiar. It kind of brings a little bit of, it kind of makes those scenes kind of more relatable in that, like, okay, these characters exist in our own world. Like it's not some fantasy world. Obviously, it is because it's a horror movie, but it's like, but you know, all the shit that they're doing, it's happening in, you know, the classic rock that you're familiar with is being played in the background. Oh man, shit, it's good. It's a good combination. It's a good blend. But I mean, at the same time, imagine if you had like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the kids are like, the college kids enter trespass into the into the Sawyer's residence, and the backdrop music was like, I don't know what was popular around that time. I don't know. Michael Jackson.
The Carpenters.
The Carpenters.
Michael Jackson, or yeah.
It would totally change the movie. It'd be like, what? Like, listen to Beat It. While Leatherface comes out of the back room and drags I think, what was her name, Pam or something? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It would totally change the movie. You know, like, imagine.
Absolutely.
Okay, Halloween Ends is out, right? Imagine Halloween Ends with like an NSYNC soundtrack. That wouldn't make any sense.
Yep, NSYNC or the modern K-pop stuff like BTS.
Yeah, BTS.
Like, where it's all dancing and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. But I do have to add a point about Halloween Ends. I thought the Halloween Ends score was great. It was very well done, but it was only one thing that I felt. It wasn't really scary. It was more dramatic. It was more sad, melancholy. I felt like the movie was more of a suspense drama than it was a horror movie. And I just thought that the combination of that score and some of the ways that they shifted Michael Myers from a villain to almost like a depressed anti-hero that didn't make his grand stand, to me, that part made it fall flat.
A depressed anti-hero that could channel his soul and spirit into someone else that could do his bidding.
Yeah.
That was
it just didn't. That's why when I watched it, I was expecting something really like to cap it off, but we got a different story that went off to a whole different tangent. I mean, I didn't think the movie was terrible, but it should have been something different, like Halloween 3: Season of the Witch, for example, which had nothing to do with Michael Myers.
Mm-hmm.
That was brilliant in its own right, but Halloween Ends was trying to tie in Michael Myers into a story that didn't fit, in my own opinion.
It's a huge contrast compared to Halloween Kills, which is just a giant slaughter fest. You have a giant slaughter fest, and then now you have, Michael Myers is he's retiring. He's done. Sort of.
Yeah,
he's not.
He's hiding out in some like sewer, just killing people, and then, and then he just comes out and he's trying to, he can't function without his mask. It's really interesting.
Which is weird because, like, if killing people gives him energy and power, like, shouldn't he be fully powered by the end of like Halloween Kills? I was thinking about that.
Exactly.
He should be like freaking like Super Saiyan at that point. All right.
Exactly.
All right. Oh man, that's
Exactly,
insane.
but
You know what, Stu? I haven't actually seen the movie yet. I haven't. I've
I,
seen all
I'm
sorts of things
sorry.
to reveal
Well,
it. I spoiled it for
like I
myself,
said,
but yeah.
well, like I'll be honest, it's worth a watch. I mean, but that's it. It's worth a watch. It's not worth maybe 10 watches or 15 watches like the original 1978 Halloween. It's worth a watch just to see where it ends. But
Mm.
I have a feeling that in 4 years, 5 years or so, they're going to make another reboot and then another
Oh, of
reboot
course.
and then another reboot.
Well, they opened the door with the ending of this to keep it going in a way where Michael Myers could be anybody. The mask could be
Absolutely.
someone else. So, look at that. They already kind of planned it there. So there's just going to be more. Oh, look at that.
Well put.
Now speaking though, Halloween, that is a franchise with an iconic theme. Iconic theme, man.
Absolutely.
You hear that? Oh man,
Yeah.
it just built it.
John Carpenter's he was a mad genius when he did it, and it was very simplistic too. It was done with very minimal bells and whistles, just a piano with a synthesizer, dun
Mhm.
dun dun. Especially at the end build up, dun dun dun, ding 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 ding. That to me is just as scary as the iconic theme. That's ding 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 ding.
Mhm.
Like the whole entire score is just perfect, and it's very well placed and it's very well executed. Like there's certain parts in the movie where there's moments of silence, and then the score bursts in with like the high strings, like go, and it just gives you it just gives you the fucking chills.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. And even when you hear it though, I mean, it's like a song. It's like a little. That theme has become a meme. Like people know it. They recognize it. They know what that is. Especially like,
Absolutely.
even the Friday the 13th one. It's like, they hear that.
Yes.
Oh yeah, Jason's coming.
Yep. The good contrast between Halloween and Friday the 13th is that Harry Manfredini's scores are much more like the soundtrack. Aside from that, he like really added a lot of complexity. Like he added like orchestral elements and like deep classical elements that were inspired by like earlier avant-garde composers from the early 20th century. And he like went, with each and every movie, he added something different to the score. So it was like an opposite of John Carpenter's approach. Like he added more and more layers to the score and did something different every time.
Man, I'm glad
John
I have you on
Carpenter
here because I didn't really
similar
notice
themes.
that. I'm glad I have someone who's good or very knowledgeable on music to go into that level. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, another one
Yeah,
is Jaws. Jaws that's a very simple
Jaws.
theme. Dude.
Jaws. Yep. And that was done by John Williams. He scored a lot of movies. Like, he scored everything from horror to sci-fi
Yeah.
to like adventure movies and so forth. But the Jaws theme, he was inspired by a composer named Igor Stravinsky, who composed this piece called The Rite of Spring, which was composed in the early 1910s.
Ooh.
And that was a piece that had a very similar like dun 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 piece. And it was about a pagan cult who had to choose a virgin who had to dance herself to death at the end. It was a ballet that caused a riot in France, and people booed him, gave him death threats, and he was
Holy
like
hell.
pretty much almost chased out of Europe. Yeah, but America, they loved his work, and he became very famous for his compositions thereafter.
Damn. I didn't even.
But it's really intense. You could find like The Rite of Spring online. It's really like these. It's very grotesque. It's like they're dressed in like tribal clothing, and the girls are all dancing very grotesquely and very like eerie with like large eyes, makeup with like large eyes, and
Damn.
large guys in bear costumes and like like things like that, dancing like that, like tribal. It's really creepy, but it works really well.
Dude, I gotta check this stuff out. That sounds awesome. Sounds pretty sinister.
But you'll hear the elements of like a lot of horror films. Like if you like listen to the Jaws theme after that, and like some of the other movies that have came out in the 70s and 80s, you'd be like, holy shit! Like this is where a lot of these composers drew from. Like some of the early pioneers that were getting booed and getting hissed at and getting jeered and getting threatened. They were way ahead of their time. That laid the groundwork for that sort of viscerally, primally dark compositions.
And on the subject of influence, is there a difference, and how do you tell the difference between those that take influence from something and those that just outright use it or be a quote, hack, so to speak?
Well, I think a lot of it has to just do with passion and sincerity, and work and effort put into it. There's people who try their best with things and do make an effort that maybe isn't up to the level of the original composer, but there's definitely an element of sincerity or a passion put into it that then you have some others who, like I said, who just don't really know the effort or don't take their time to study the work, that just go right out and do it. So, like I said, I don't like to say that everyone's a hack, but there are some people who sometimes, like I said, don't take the lessons or learn composition or learn how to study the art of music. It would be like just saying someone who likes to paint, like, oh, I like to paint, but have you taken classes on how to paint? Just because you might use good set of colors doesn't mean you're going to create a visually stunning work of art. I mean, you have to study composition, anatomy, lights, color. You have to study the different elements before you can make a visual painting look really good. Taste in art and taste in music is something to be said. Even if something's atonal or ugly, like think of Picasso, for example.
Okay.
His works were grotesque, but he knew what he was doing, and he still had an eye for what he did. And even if it turned people off, he still knew what he was doing, and he still had the taste for shapes and detail. With music, it's the same thing. You can tell when someone's really doing something and knowing what they're doing versus just throwing shit and making it trying to sound good.
Okay. I mean, you have a point there. At the same time, I mean, are there people who who don't have the education or to take the classes that just so happen to produce good visual work?
There could be, absolutely could be. I mean, but those are rare. It's more like a diamond in the rough. I mean, the music world, the art world, the entertainment world, there's so many people, and there's the competition levels are through the roof. And I just think that there are cases and exceptional cases where either those who are really great or those who really, really suck get the most attention. It's usually those in the middle who, are okay or, trying their best, but they don't really stand out. Those are the ones who usually fall, off the grid.
And bringing this back to music, what about what's this song called? I think it's just called Friday by Rebecca Black. You think she studied music?
I highly doubt it. If she did, she didn't do a great job at it, and that to me is just marketing. I don't think that's really genuine music. That's just marketing. That's just selling a face, selling an image, and selling a product. I mean, that's just the idea of just selling art to young kids at that age as a passing fad. I mean, to me, there's plenty of music out there that's always going to be like a commodity rather than an actual true work of art. And I think the true music that's really artistically sound is the music that doesn't get a lot of recognition. In the very rare elements and instances that it does, that's when those become dramatically great albums that become revered as classics or as just masterpieces. But I mean, in this day and age, it's hard to say because everybody and anybody could take a recording system or buy Pro Tools and become an overnight musician.
Yeah, for example, I'm thinking of two musicians that started off of YouTube. Okay, I'm thinking of Justin Bieber and Poppy. Poppy started on YouTube, right? That's how she started. Okay,
I think so.
They seem very different. Like Justin Bieber, I was never a Bieber fan. I was never I didn't really consider it music. But Poppy,
Understood.
Poppy seems to kind of be aware. I think she's creating art. Okay, but that's it may not always be for me or whatever. But I'm just putting it out there. What do you think? Do you think they study music?
I don't know. Like I said, it's hard to tell. Some will study music and probably won't tell you. Some probably would study it and use it as a secret weapon. I mean, you look at Lady Gaga, for example. She's classically trained and she has a whole history of studying music. And she can play. She plays piano. She does different styles. True. She shows tremendous diversity. So she's one of those rare few that has the whole package, that can go up there dressed up in a meat suit and sing, very sensual, sexy pop tunes, but then can be classy and sing a duet with Tony Bennett and, hit it out of the park with that.
You're right about that. Now, to bring this back to sound design and horror movies, there's a few other good examples that Hush is another good example. I didn't really like that film.
Yes.
I didn't like it because it seemed like you're trying to, like, the killer was sloppy, and I was like, okay, I see what you're doing, but sound design, it was on point. I can't.
Yeah, it was well done. Like it wasn't one of my favorites. Like I watched it, I forgot a lot of it. It wasn't really memorable to me.
Yeah.
Like you watch a movie and then like you have to watch it again, but after watching it a second or third time, you really don't remember the plot. Like it just seems like it could have been any other movie. Like the plot just seemed like very like didn't really like hit me. It didn't really strike me as unique.
There wasn't
or as
really
different.
much of a plot. I mean, I know there's something that could be said for a lot of slashers. You know, like it's very simple. The guy comes in, he starts trying to kill her, but it's like, well, it's kind of like Home Alone, but like the girl's deaf.
Yeah, and like it kind of reminded me loosely of
something like that. Sorry.
Loosely, it reminds me of When a Stranger Calls. Like the original When a Stranger Calls, like the first build up. Now that sound design was brilliant. Like that was really nauseating and unnerving. And that like when I first saw it, when you hear like when she picked it up, like have you checked the children? It just drew you in, and that like literally sent the shivers up my spine when I first saw it as a teen.
Yeah. Oh, another good one is A Quiet Place. What do you think about as far as sound design goes? Because they use a lot of silence.
There's a lot of silence, but like the scenes that when the monsters or alien figures, whatever you want to call them, came out, it just was very sudden. That was a movie where the silence was deafening. It worked in that favor because of that specific plot. Yeah. The same I don't think can be said for films like Paranormal Activity, where I tried to enjoy it for what it was, but I'm not a big fan of found footage, with the exception of VHS and VHS2, where, in those cases, there was sounds, but they were placed like almost like in a realistic setting. Like if you're at a party hearing music and then you walk outside and then you're out in the world, that was more like just like a straight ahead realistic setting. But most films where there's no soundtrack or score don't really hit me viscerally. I mean, I understand there's an audience for it, but it's not my cup of tea.
I mean, that makes sense, though. It'd be a harder sell. I mean, imagine seeing a modern horror movie without any sound or music. It would be hard to do.
That's why I didn't like Blair Witch Project when I first saw it. Like, it didn't scare me. Like, I mean, you saw some like stunning visuals that looked like it was a film that came off a VHS tape, but it did nothing for me. I'm going to be honest, it did nothing for me.
I think with that one. I think with Blair Witch, it was more of the stuff around it, creating this idea that it could be real, that these people were in the camp, or not camp, but in the forest, whatever, and there's something real that happened, and that. Of course, they're limited with what they could do, maybe, because they're like, well, any sound that you hear is going to have to come through. It's going to have to sound like it was captured on that, obviously the footage, So,
sure.
Yeah. I mean, some people like it, some people don't. But I think creating that illusion that those kids or, the crew actually got killed or, whatever happened to them, is what sold that.
Yeah. It was marketing genius. I will give it that. It was a genius in marketing and, promotion. That I give that credit for as a sell. Like whoever created that brand and sold it the way they did, that was brilliant. But I just thought the story itself, just like I said, it didn't hit me. I just would rather watch something else.
Yeah. And I kind of think the same thing about the Quiet Place a little bit, and just because like the sound design was great and all, but this has nothing really to do with the sound design. This actually has to do with the plot of that movie. I was like, the plot's okay-ish, kind of, but you create like this monster that's like. Impervious, that's like resistant to damage to the point to where like the military can't kill it, nukes don't destroy it, but what destroys it is feedback, something that can be produced by an amplifier, something that typo negative could have destroyed those monsters. Just you play Bloody Kisses, there you go, the name of the tracks, but the ones that start off with a feedback, which a lot of them do, is like, there you go, monsters destroyed.
Yep. Like the song like Too Late Frozen, like right
Yeah,
after
that
that,
one.
like montage of
Yeah.
30th, and then it goes, and then yeah, that play that for 30 seconds and loop
Yep.
it, loop it, loop it, and then
And then they're destroyed. But what shit. Man, sound design is so essential, so essential. Like if you don't have
absolutely.
it, it's gonna kill it. And you're right about the found footage. They're like, what do you think it is? Do you think they're limited based on what they can do with it?
No, I just think they're trying to blend realism, like something that could happen in real life, with elements of things that can't happen in real life. I mean, with the supernatural, of course, there's no proof that anything supernatural can happen in real life, such as ghosts coming back from the dead, or otherworldly entities entering from space. Like there's so much that isn't proven by science that can't happen in real life, but they try to use those elements in these films to entertain the idea that if these things did happen, that would make people really start to be afraid. And I think that's like a expression of what could possibly occur if there were aliens or extraterrestrial figures that did invade Earth, or if supernatural beings somehow did happen to exist in another dimension or another plane, of frequencies that we cannot comprehend as humans. But as I said, it's more of an expression or a statement, or perhaps it could be a metaphor of things that are happening in real life that are put into such an expressionist sort of package.
Okay. Yeah. I see that.
So yeah, but getting back to it, I think a lot of the 70s and 80s films, they had stunning scores. I mean, some of the scores to those are legendary. I mean, you can even go back to 1960, the original Psycho. Bernard Herrmann scored to that, the shower scene, and that, for example, very simplistic, just a violin going,
Yep.
another violin clashing with another thing, and then another coming in really low. Very simple, but very effective.
Yeah, simple and effective. In the way those chords sound, the way those notes sound, it's unnerving. It fits right with it. It's like essential to sell it. I mean, I'm thinking back now to like the silent films, and there's a few very classic silent films, horror movie silent films. Nosferatu for one, and
yes,
like to sell that movie, they all they had was visuals. And they used everything they could, as far as that goes, and it was scary. It was creepy looking. I mean,
oh yes,
but
it was great. Or the Cabinet of Dr. Cagliari, or Cagliari.
Yeah,
I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm trying to figure that out, but that's another one. Like it just less is more when it came to the dialogue, but the creepiness in the background just made it what it was.
Exactly, 100%. Like, if you don't have the sound or music, you have to rely heavily on visuals, and it has to be convincing. And you can't just, like, I think people take it for granted. Like, once again, a slasher movie. Example, a knife, Michael Myers stabbing somebody. Like you want there to be an impact sound. You want there to be a hardcore impact sound. If not, it's not going to be scary. It's just not.
No, it doesn't. If anything, it looks disturbing, but that extra element of that sound really hits your senses, and it's the combination of the sounds of the notes that clash with one another, that don't line up. Like, it doesn't create a harmony. It creates a very tough, dissonant sound, which is harsh on the ears, but it also can induce like nausea in some people, or the sense of that suspense where your spine literally starts to tingle bottom up.
Like, imagine if Halloween Michael Myers was a found footage film, and it was just like captured on a camcorder that Michael Myers was stabbing somebody, and they didn't add in like the extra impact. Like the sound of actually stabbing somebody. I don't know if anyone's ever done this. Don't stab people, but like there's not, like, you're not going to hear much. Like, you don't. There's not really much of a sound.
Not at all.
Like, you might hear
but in the movie you hear in the movie you hear the thud, like the thud.
Yeah.
Like and it's like, and it's gross when you hear it. It's grotesque.
Yeah, and they make that happen with all those freaking sounds, man. But you could probably educate me on how they do it. I mean, combining different types of sounds to get that perfect, the thud, the impact, maybe the bone breaking, the sound of blood coming out, and all that stuff. Ooh, man, and timing
Oh
just
yeah, there's
right
there's
with the
there's a lot of
score.
it.
Mm.
There's a lot of it, and there's a lot of sounds that they use. There's a lot of effects that they incorporate in post production that also add to it too. I mean, post production on its own is probably one of the most difficult art forms to master. And like, you could be great at music and great at recording and great at composing, but post production, mixing, mastering, those are different art forms that even the best musicians in the world sometimes have trouble with because they don't have that extra set of ears that can allow the next person to go, what would work
Mm.
here and what would work well there. That's much more difficult to get to, and very few people, even those who try their best, get to that level.
So, do you think if they did more like post production or sound, I guess post production work on, let's say, a Paranormal Activity, that they could make the sound like a little bit more intense, a little bit more convincing?
Well, they could add some more infrasonic sounds like that are below the very lowest frequency that humans could hear. They could add more of that, or perhaps add like a very subtle sound in the background of like a high shrieking sound that
Mm-hmm.
would add more to it, or perhaps make that movie, but make it something like an actual movie that has found footage elements, but add a score, like add like an underscore throughout certain elements, which would make it more, in a sense where you could suspend that element of disbelief and not have to worry if it's realistic or not, but to enjoy the art for what it is in a more, intricate sense.
I see that.
But like I said, these are just my own opinions. I mean,
Yeah,
others
that's
can
fine. That's
disagree and
I'm good
offer
with
other
that.
points, and I'm cool with people having different perspectives. I think that variety of opinions and perspectives on horror is what makes the genre so great, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's people who love found footage. There's some people who don't. I think it's very interesting. I think to make a convincing found footage, like you do have to, man, you do have to put some extra stuff in there. You can't just make it like it was found on a VHS or found on a camcorder or whatever. It has to have a little bit more. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it looks stale and boring. All right.
Yeah. I
Now,
totally
some questions
agree.
for you here. I'm going to ask you what you prefer, okay? And
Okay.
you go into why, and hopefully,
Okay.
Candyman or Scream. Which one would
Definitely
you rather watch?
Candyman.
Candyman. Okay.
Candyman, because in my opinion, Candyman is very unique for what it was, and especially for when it was released at its time. I mean, I know Clive Barker is a master in horror with his directing, and I enjoyed his work in Hellraiser, and I have his books of blood stories, which I've read, and I've gone through, and he just creates a different type of horror. Like, he brings horror to an urban setting, and there wasn't a lot of urban horror. That was a lot of it, but he captured it really well in that like seedy Chicago area, where it had that extra element, and it made a very deep kind of dark, twisted story,
Mhm.
and the backstory of it, added to it. Whereas Scream, to me, it was just too generic. It seemed like a typical slasher film, but it was too high schoolish. After a certain age, you can't relate to just a bunch of high school kids and talking on their phones and going out on a Saturday night. Like, it doesn't have much substance. How it
Gotcha.
spawned 4 sequels to me is beyond me, but I did watch them, and some of them were pretty funny for what they were. They had that element of comedy that Candyman didn't, but Candyman to me is just, it's very different. It hits you on different levels, and some of the graphic violence within it was pretty much ahead of its time in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see both. Scream, man, I like the thing I liked about Scream was that anyone could be the killer. Like, you didn't really know. It was like kind of like a murder mystery sort of thing. I did like that. The high school thing, yeah, you kind of if you don't relate to it, you don't relate to it. It was also very meta as far as very self-aware. It was like a horror movie within horror movies. Like, it was aware that other horror movies existed, and like it tried to
Right.
play on those tropes. That was kind of interesting. But Candyman, you're right, man. Like, there wasn't a lot of urban horror movies out there, and I believe Clive made that based on an actual real report where someone was murdered in an apartment complex very similar to that, where there's cross spaces between the actual apartments. Where you could actually go from one to the other, and apparently there some I don't know the full details. Kind of escape me here, but like there was an incident where someone was murdered, and it was like, how did someone enter? The door was locked, and it didn't break through the door. Well, they came through, they came through the hollow space. It's so fucking weird. Like who does that?
That is bizarre.
And that spawned the Candyman, and I also thought the Candyman was pretty hardcore as far as like what it did. Like,
yes,
they had a freaking dead dog, a severed dog, the freaking head, right?
Yes,
dude.
Just the scene where the villain was covered in bees, like all over his body. When he just opened his shirt and it's just bees emerging. That unsettled me when I first saw it. And I was just, I've never seen that before in a horror film, but that was just so cleverly done. And I read that in real life, these actors were paid thousands of dollars, to get stung by these bees, and they were immediately treated after the scenes because they could have sued if they were allergic or something. But they were paid off a lot to get stung by these bees.
Thousands. Would you take thousands of dollars to be stung by bees?
It would depend. I mean, I've gotten stung. I mean, I'm not allergic. I don't think I'm allergic, but I've gotten stung, and it's just annoying. Getting 1,000, hundreds of bees on your body, like coming at the same time. That's. I don't know how I'd react with that. That would probably suck. It would really be painful, and I would probably be unhappy for a couple of days. But I would probably have to consider that if this was going to pay my salary for a few months, and if this was what I signed up for, then just suck it up and do it.
Right. I don't remember seeing I don't remember seeing a Fear Factor contest with bees. I don't remember that. I don't know if you've ever seen that show.
I've heard about it. I've never watched it though. I've heard they've done some pretty interesting, risky stuff on there though.
Oh yeah, usually just eating bugs or eating a bull penis. It got really stupidly grotesque and like more like gross out things. Like, I think Joe Rogan talked about it. I think the last one they did was they're gonna drink a lot of bull semen, and it's like, why are we doing that?
Yuck.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not
like fear. That's just stupid.
That's just like disgusting factor. It's more like how gross are you willing to go?
Yeah, like it's more like how gross are you willing to go for money? What are you willing to do for money?
Everybody's got to draw a line somewhere.
Right?
Everybody's got to draw a line, and everybody's got a certain threshold where they'll not cross it. And that's perfectly valid.
Everyone has a line. Everyone has a line. Everyone has a price.
There you go.
Oh man. Okay. So that was good. Candyman. I like both. We definitely have to talk about the Devil's Advocate a little bit too. That's something you mentioned as one of your favorite horror movies, right? That's something.
Yes, it's a very Devil's Advocate starring Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino. It's very underrated, and it's a 90s horror film, which I wouldn't call it like in the true horror. It probably blends on the suspense thriller with horror elements, but there are some scenes and visuals that are, delightfully disturbing throughout, and it's a very interesting movie. It's a long movie, but it does feature some interesting philosophical dialogue portrayed by Al Pacino's character of John Milton, who reveals himself to be Satan throughout the movie, and says a lot of things that really do make some excellent points about nature, about humans, about society, but the movie is very hard to watch for some people, and I've heard some relatives back when I was younger have walked out of the theater at certain points throughout the movie, which just goes to show you how disturbing and unsettling the movie is on a lot of levels.
It is pretty disturbing. I mean, I rewatched it last night, and it was almost like 3 hours long. But I rewatched it last night. I thought Keanu Reeves' performance was good in that movie. First off,
it's fantastic.
It disturbed me a little bit because it's like, you're gonna get these people off, you son of a bitch, you mother. It's like,
yes.
It's like how low are you willing to go for money? It's like, what are you willing to do for money? Are you willing to let these people off as hard as possible?
Yes, and he was just being further enabled by Milton, Al Pacino's character of Milton, who was able to, suavely and yet effectively persuade Kevin Lomax, Keanu Reeves' character, to, go all the way, and to, sell his own soul or sell out his wife in the process too.
Yeah.
Marianne became mentally, disturbed and, psychologically damaged throughout the movie with all the different incidents that she saw. But, Kevin's greed furthered him going further down that rabbit hole. And then you saw,
Hmm.
Milton, the character of Milton, further, you know, explain that, I'm going to keep manipulating you, but you do have the power, the free will to stop whenever you want. But he didn't stop when he wanted to, and then inevitably led to, the culmination, the climactic scene where Marianne stabs herself in the neck. Ugh,
Yeah.
that fucked me up the first
Dude,
time I
that
saw
was
it.
a crazy scene. That was an intense scene, even more intense than the freaking goat scene. Like that was
Yes, that
pretty.
bothered me.
Yeah. When
Yeah, it's like a yeah, like an abandoned basement in like this like project house. It was
yeah,
really dark and deep.
dude, it was like, man, what's going on here? This John Milton guy are his clients other like religious people, but it's like, oh no, no, he has murders and all this stuff. It's crazy what happens. It kind of makes you wonder, like, how are these people? Where are they all going to him? But okay, just think about okay, yeah. But it's really grotesque what they do. What they show in that movie. Um, oh man.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned Mary,
And
which is his wife. What Charlize Theron plays her, right?
Charlize Theron, yeah, she was
Theron.
she was great in that. She
Yeah,
she she played a great role. Like in the beginning, she seems very like like well made, has it well, stable, powerful, like flirty. But then she gets really damaged throughout. You can
really
see like the
damaged.
how it like it like looks like how her face changes, how her attitude changes. The scene when she stands up in the church and she has the marks all over her body. When you just see that she's done for, it's really like unsettling.
It really is, and they did her character well. Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, they made it seem like she was the bad influence. I mean, that's what the mother kind of hinted at. But it was like, no, she's not the bad influence. It's really
No.
Milton, and
Yep.
he's evil. He's pure evil. He's Satan.
And and another interpretation I had, and some people have said that this is interesting, is that from a completely like secular scientific standpoint, the movie could have very much well have been a dream where he was in the bathroom washing his face. The whole entire movie could have just been a long dream where he fell asleep and thought about the whole thing and imagined it, woke up and realized, oh shit, like I'm about to get this person off, this fucking pedophile, and I have to do something about this. So it could be interpreted one of two ways, from, did this really happen, or was this all imagined as he, had a, like, an internal war going on within his head.
Yeah, and that's the part of the movie that I was like, oh yeah, shit, it was all a dream. Oh man, because that thing, you have to be careful with that because you don't want it to be like, oh, it was all fake, it all didn't matter. But what they did with it, especially at the end, is like, oh, or was it? Because it's like, even with this free will, is there really free will? Because
Of course, and it goes to show you the element of, how far one can go and how far one can manifest greed and how one can manifest, sinking oneself and abandoning one's own principles just to, just fulfill the ego and fulfill an empty ego that can never be filled.
right. Now think about have you ever seen the movie Suicide Club? That's a
No, I
Japanese. No,
haven't
no,
seen
no,
that
no,
one.
no. Sorry, not that one. The audition. The audition. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yes, I saw Audition. Yes, that was insane. Very hard to watch, but I got through it, and it was
Yeah,
it was very well done, and loved it.
yeah. That one also has a kind of a, was it all a dream, or was it real thing?
Yes.
It's crazy. I think of it like it was. Was it all in his head? Was it all in his head?
It could. That's what I said. It's all open to it. They leave it open to interpretation. So
Yeah.
if you want to look at it from one way or another, you can look at it in different perspectives to challenge your own notions of what you perceived from it, or you could just suspend disbelief and just think, oh, just enjoy it for what it is, and
Hmm.
absorb the story for what it is. And sometimes you don't have to overthink or over dissect the film to really appreciate the art as its own, and
Hmm.
that's what the beauty of, I think, a movie like Audition does. It allows you to break that sort of like you know analysis sort of mode and just get lost into the movie and feel like you're just in that setting and watching all of this insane torture taking place.
Right, right. Yeah, I can see that because the guy was very conflicted because of the loss of his wife. Um, and of course, he found interest in this one lady through a sleazy means, through advice through I guess a coworker or whatever. He seemed kind of reluctant, but he did it anyway. And and then it was like, is he conflicted about that? Is he conflicted about the loss of his wife? What's going on here? Because the movie did a great job, I think, kind of showing that, like, he actually loved his wife. He didn't want to move on.
Yes.
But she died, and he kind of has to in a way. He doesn't really have to, but he does. Anyway, I thought it was cool. I thought that movie was really good as far as exploring those sort of fears. And it had great setting and really good sound design. Oh,
yes.
Yes. That scene when she's like stabbing him in the eyes or stabbing him in his body with all this.
Oh, yes. The sound bits that it really like it was like it's like getting punched in the stomach. Like when you hear it, it's almost like we're getting poked in the eye, or getting that earache. That really like annoying. Though all of those combined in one, those were the sensations that make you squirm. And I think that scene was very effective in employing that very dissonant, very harsh, very cacophonous ability to make the listener or the viewer go, "Oh, fuck, this is not happening."
Right, right. And the reason why I brought up Suicide Club, that was another one I was going to reference as far as interesting sound design, because, I joked around about, if Halloween Ends had like NSYNC in the background, how silly it would be. But Suicide Club actually kind of used J-pop in it. Like,
that's so pretty cool.
Like, yeah, right. It's a very grim, dark movie about like mass suicide, but it's tied with this J-pop sound, which is very, I don't know how you would describe it. I would describe it as like really, really manufactured, like optimism. I don't know. It's like trying to keep you happy.
It's very, very happy sounding, very like happy-go-lucky, very like feel good. Yeah, that's a movie I have to watch. I have to put that on my list and watch it. There's a lot of movies that I feel that I should revisit or I have to see that I've missed the boat on, because there's just so much movies and so little time to capture them all.
There's a lot out there, and it's hard to be an expert at all of them. I have a few other questions for you if you have time. We're almost wrapping up here, but okay. We'll do one more of these movie questions. I like these. Okay, so which one would you rather watch here? Child's Play or Nightmare on Elm Street?
Oof, that's a tough one. I would say A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's a very tough, close call, because with A Nightmare on Elm Street, the very first Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, that movie showed Freddy as like a true, like, dark, unbeatable villain. He was like when you saw the first girl, like Tina, she's like, "Oh my god," and he goes, "It's God." That like gave you the chills, like right there. And then he just scratched the thing, and then he just killed her. Like, those scenes were visually unsettling. When you're like 14 years old watching that for the first time, you're like, "What the fuck?" Like, you're watching this and you're like, "Holy shit." Child's Play was another one. The first half of Child's Play that led up to Chucky like starting to killing, when Chucky didn't say anything, that was really scary. But when Chucky started talking and he started going like, "You're so bad, bitch," with the like Charlie's Lee Ray's voice, that to me, like, then Chucky started to get funnier and funnier as it went on.
Yeah.
And the rest of the movies, like, I like the Child's Play series, and Chucky is one of the funnier villains, but the first half of it was really like creepy and scary. But then when he started talking, I was like, okay, now this has got some comedy elements. And then when he killed the guy with the voodoo doll, like, that was just comedy in my opinion. Like, how about a broken leg? And it was just like killing this guy and like delivering commentary the whole time. I just thought it was funny. Sadly, Freddy got really funny by the end of the series as well. When Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare came out, like that was just a total like comedy film right there. There's no like when he's like riding the broom like the Wicked Witch of the Wizard of Oz, I just lost it. I was like, how do you go from 1984 Nightmare on Elm Street to this? And I'm like, it's like you're watching the really scary, unsettling movie about one who kills people in their dreams, in a very deep, like, disturbing way, almost like a spider treats a fly that's trapped in the web in a very playful way, and then just goes in for the kill, to now killing somebody in a Nintendo game,
Yeah,
while In
yeah.
the God of the Vita's
But
playing in the background.
it's
It's
weird. It's
just
almost
so
like
ridiculous.
it's like the fans seem to want it though. It's like they want them to be like cartoony and over the top. It's like so you want the crazy kill scenes, but you also want the freaking one-liners, the wit, and all this shit.
Yeah, I mean, and eventually it just becomes like these movies become a thing where you just see these like complete idiots like going, "Oh, let's do this, let's do that," and then Freddy just kills them one by one. It's almost like you don't feel bad for the victims at that point. You're just like, "Yeah, jerk off, they deserved it," or whatever.
right. Because part of the whole course there, you expect it, and then they start teaming up. You got Freddy and
Yep.
Jason teaming up.
Freddy
tag
versus
teaming.
Jason.
Freddy versus Jason.
I'm ready to see like a multi-level horror film with like Chucky, Freddy, Jason, and Michael Myers all in the same thing. I mean, it's eventually going to happen at some point in time in history where you're going to have like a big conglomeration of a bunch of horror figures do something, and they're all there, and everybody just getting slaughtered left and right.
The Avengers of
like,
horror is what we're looking for.
Yep, pretty much. It hasn't happened yet, but it's coming at some point, and I wouldn't be surprised if there is a big budget film that happens within the next 30 years at some point.
I think Universal was trying to do that with their monsters with the man. What was that Mummy movie with Tom Cruise? Wasn't he in that movie? Man, they made it into like an action film. I don't.
Was it? I don't remember. I don't know if that was Tom Cruise or Brendan Fraser.
No. Brendan Fraser's in the Good Mummies. He's in the
okay.
the 90s Mummies. I mean, if you go back and watch it now,
okay.
The special effects don't hold up because it's 90s. But
True.
there was another Mummy movie. It was recent, and it was more like an action.
I totally.
Movie. They weren't. And it was like they're trying to do like a universal horror thing, but they turned into an action movie. I don't know. It's weird.
Interesting.
But yeah. So, but maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see them. I mean, they would have to get together. Like, I guess these studios would have to get together to do these something like that, some sort of project like that.
There would be a lot of legal red tape for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Well, before we wrap up, is there something new that you're working on right now?
Right now, no. I'm just right now promoting and plugging my newest album, which is Autumnal Apparitions, which I have on physical CD and vinyl on demand and on all streaming services. And it's all being sold through my website at Cucurbitophobia.com and through any streaming service such as Spotify, Amazon, Apple, Bandcamp, Deezer, and YouTube Music. You could find it anywhere and stream it and check it out. As far as brand new music, like I said, I'm taking a break for a little while, just letting the creative senses breathe a bit more, just allowing myself to focus on life, work, and just settling down for now until the creative juices start flowing again, and I have the time to divide between work and life to allow myself to put something out that doesn't repeat the same thing I did before, but takes it a new direction, that adds a different musical element, perhaps takes it to a level that I haven't gone yet before.
That's pretty cool. And I checked out that album, at least one of the songs anyway, The Cloak of Twilight. I highly do recommend the album, based on the one song I heard. It was really great. It was really great on building that horror, and that feeling of dread. Is really good stuff there. Really did enjoy that.
Oh, thank you very much.
And it was good having you, man. You seemed to be able to look at things in a very intricate way. I do enjoy that. It was good talking to you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you having me on. It was an absolute pleasure to be on part of your show, and I really enjoyed it and had a great time.
No problem. And for those watching, y'all take it easy and have a good one.